Imagine waking up with a brilliant idea, a spark of inspiration that could change your career, your health, or your future. You feel the surge of excitement, but then, within seconds, a voice inside your head begins to speak. You aren't ready for this. It whispers. What if you fail? What if everyone realizes you're just pretending? Before you've even taken a single step, you are already defeated. This isn't an external enemy. It is your own internal dialogue. Most people spend their entire lives listening to this voice, unaware that it is a master of self-sabotage. Meet Leo. He is a talented designer with a portfolio of work that most people would envy. Yet, he is currently staring at a blank screen, his heart racing and his palms sweating. He has just been offered the project of a lifetime, but instead of celebrating, he is paralyzed. The voice in his head is louder than ever. It's analyzing every possible mistake he could make. It's reminding him of a failure from 5 years ago. It's convincing him that he is an imposter. Leo is experiencing imposter syndrome, a psychological phenomenon where high-achieving individuals are unable to internalize their success and fear being exposed as a fraud. But here is the secret that modern neuroscience has finally uncovered: that voice in your head? It isn't actually you. It is the product of an ancient, biological survival mechanism located deep within the brain, the amygdala. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure that was designed to keep your ancestors alive in a world full of physical threats. Its job was to scan the environment for saber-toothed tigers and poisonous snakes. When it found a threat, it would flood the body with stress hormones like cortisol, triggering a fight or flight response. The problem is that in the modern world, there are no tigers. So, the amygdala has turned its attention inward. It treats a new business project or a social interaction as if it were a physical predator. It uses your own internal dialogue to create fear, hoping that the fear will stop you from taking a risk. For Leo, this means his own brain is effectively hijacking his potential. Every time he thinks about starting the project, his amygdala sends a signal of danger. His internal dialogue then creates a story to explain that danger. I'm not good enough. He is caught in a neurochemical loop. The thought creates the fear, and the fear justifies the thought. This is the science of the inner critic. It is not a reflection of reality. It is a primitive biological error. To master his life, Leo must first master this dialogue. He must learn that he is not the talker. He is the listener. He needs to realize that his mind is like a house with a very loud, very paranoid roommate living in the attic. Just because the roommate is shouting doesn't mean the house is actually on fire. As Leo reaches for his laptop, his hand trembles. The voice tells him to go watch TV instead, to do anything to escape the discomfort. This is the resistance. But Leo is about to learn a technique that will change everything. He is about to discover cognitive labeling, a method to disarm the amygdala by simply naming the emotion. Instead of saying, I am a failure, he is going to learn to say, I am having a thought that I might fail. It sounds like a small shift, but in the brain, it is a revolution. In this video, we are going to explore the hidden architecture of your thoughts. We will look at how to rewire the neural pathways of self-doubt, how to distinguish between helpful caution and toxic sabotage, and the specific linguistic tools you can use to silence the inner critic forever. The war for your future is being fought inside your mind. It's time to start winning. Leo is frozen. His fingers are hovering over the keyboard, but they feel like lead. The project brief is open, but the words are blurring into a mess of impossible expectations. The paranoid roommate in his head isn't just whispering anymore, it's shouting. You're going to mess this up. Everyone will see you're a fraud. Just close the laptop and walk away. This is what scientists call an amygdala hijack. In this state, the emotional center of Leo's brain has completely overpowered his logical mind. He can't think creatively because his body believes it is fighting for its life. The first thing Leo notices is his breath. It's shallow and rapid. When we are anxious, we chest breathe, which sends a signal to the brain that the emergency is ongoing. To break the cycle, Leo uses a biological kill switch, called the physiological sigh. He inhales deeply through his nose, follows it with a second, shorter sharp inhale to fully expand the tiny air sacs in his lungs, and then lets out a long, slow exhale through his mouth. As he exhales, his heart rate begins to drop. By consciously controlling his breath, he is manually overriding his nervous system. He is telling his brain, "The tiger is gone. You are safe." This shift allows the blood to flow back into his prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for high-level decision-making and logic. The roommate is still there, but the volume has been turned down. Now that he can think again, Leo applies a second tool, the third-person effect. Most of our internal dialogue happens in the first person. I am failing. I can't do this. This creates a sense of total identification with the thought. To create cognitive distancing, Leo begins to talk to himself using his own name, as if he were a supportive coach. He whispers, "Leo is feeling overwhelmed right now. Leo is having a thought that he might not be good enough." By switching from I to Leo, he creates a psychological buffer. He is no longer in the storm, he is an observer watching the storm pass by. This simple linguistic shift activates the brain's regulatory circuits, reducing the emotional impact of the inner critic. He realizes that a thought is not a fact, it is just a temporary mental event. Leo's hands are no longer trembling. He types the first word of his project. It isn't perfect, but it's a start. However, as he makes progress, a new shadow emerges. The roommate changes its strategy. It stops telling him he's a failure and starts telling him he's a perfectionist. It tells him that if the work isn't flawless on the first try, it's worthless. Leo has silenced the fear, but now he must face the perfectionism trap. He's about to discover that his inner critic didn't just appear out of nowhere, it was built, piece by piece, by his past. Leo is working steadily now, his hands moving with a fluid rhythm. But as he finishes the first draft of his design, he hits a wall. He zooms in on a single line, a curve that is slightly off. It's barely noticeable, but the paranoid roommate, in his head, sees it as a catastrophe. "This is mediocre," the voice sneers. "If it isn't flawless, it's a failure. You're just proving that you don't belong in this industry." Leo pauses. He realizes something strange about the tone of this voice. It doesn't sound like him. It sounds like someone else. This is the third great secret of the mind: your inner critic is not an original creation. It is an internalized voice. As children and young adults, our brains are like sponges. To survive socially, we download the standards and criticisms of the authority figures around us, parents, teachers, or harsh mentors. We do this to stay safe within the group. If we criticize ourselves before someone else can, we feel like we are protecting ourselves from the pain of external rejection. Over time, these external voices become baked into our neural pathways. We stop hearing the original person and start believing these thoughts are our own objective truth. Leo closes his eyes and tries to trace the origin of this perfectionism trap. He remembers his old university professor, a man who believed that anything less than perfection was an insult to the craft. "A masterpiece or nothing," the professor used to say. For years, Leo had admired that intensity. But now he realizes that he has been carrying that man's ghost in his head for a decade. The voice telling him he is mediocre isn't Leo's intuition, it is an archived memory masquerading as his identity. This realization is a breakthrough in metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. Leo decides to use a technique called externalization. Instead of fighting the voice, he gives it a name and a character. He decides to call this specific perfectionist voice the professor. By giving the voice a name, Leo strips it of its power. When the professor says the curve is a failure, Leo can now reply, "Thank you for your input, Professor, but we are in the draft phase now. Perfection is not the goal, progress is." He is no longer arguing with himself, he is managing a difficult employee. This shift creates a psychological boundary. It allows him to keep working while the voice grumbles in the background, unable to seize the steering wheel of his focus. Leo smiles and keeps drawing. He feels lighter. He has uncovered the who and the why behind his self-doubt. But as the sun begins to set, a new challenge arises. He has managed the voice of the past, but now he has to face the anxiety of the future. The professor is quiet, but a new voice starts to whisper about the deadline. This voice isn't critical, it's frantic. It's the voice of catastrophizing. The sun has set, casting long, cool shadows across Leo's studio. The initial excitement of his breakthrough is beginning to wear thin, and his physical energy is dipping. This is the moment when the paranoid roommate in his head changes its mask once again. It stops criticizing his skill and starts whispering about the future. "You're working too slowly," it says, its tone now frantic and breathless. "The deadline is coming. The client will be disappointed. You'll lose your reputation, and you'll never get another contract again." Leo feels a cold knot of dread in his stomach. This is catastrophizing. It is a cognitive distortion where the brain takes a small, manageable problem, like a tight deadline, and inflates it into a total life disaster. His mind is playing a horror movie of his future, and he is the star of the tragedy. In the science of internal dialogue, this is known as the what-if loop. The brain is trying to predict the future to prepare for danger, but because it is still in a high cortisol state, it only predicts the worst-case scenario. Leo isn't just thinking, he is ruminating. He is stuck in a repetitive cycle of negative thoughts that lead nowhere. To stop the movie, Leo needs to move from his imagination back into reality. He needs to use a technique called the probability check. He grabs a piece of paper and draws 3 columns. In the first, he writes the worst-case scenario. "The client hates it, and I am fired." In the second, he writes the best-case scenario. "The client loves it and gives me a promotion." Usually, our brains only show us the first column. But then, Leo fills in the third column, the most likely scenario. "The client might have some small edits, we will fix them, and the project will be finished on time." By forcing his brain to look at all 3 possibilities, Leo is practicing cognitive reframing. He is moving his focus from a threat to a problem to be solved. The most likely scenario acts as a grounding force. It doesn't promise perfection, but it removes the terror of the catastrophe. He realizes that 99% of the things he worries about never actually happen. They are just ghosts created by a tired brain. Leo takes a deep breath. The horror movie in his head has stopped playing. He looks at his third column and feels a surge of practical energy. He knows exactly what to do next. But just as he picks up his pen, he realizes his body is exhausted. He has been fighting a mental war all day, and he is running on empty. He is about to learn that mastering the inner critic isn't just a mental game, it's a physical one. He needs to discover the restoration phase before his brain shuts down completely. Leo is winning the mental war, but he is losing the physical battle. It is now late in the evening, and the cool glow of his computer monitor is the only light in the room. He has been sitting in the same chair for 6 hours. His back is stiff, his eyes are burning, and he has a dull ache behind his temples. This is the moment when the paranoid roommate returns with a new, more dangerous argument. "See?" it whispers. "You're already tired. You don't have the stamina for this. A real professional wouldn't be struggling like this. Maybe you just don't have the drive it takes to succeed." Leo feels a wave of guilt. He thinks he should keep pushing, but his brain feels like it's made of cotton. He is experiencing decision fatigue. Every time Leo made a choice today, which color to use, how to phrase a thought, or how to silence his inner critic, he used a small amount of mental fuel. Willpower is a finite resource. It is like a battery that drains throughout the day. When that battery is low, the prefrontal cortex, the logical part of the brain, struggles to function. This is exactly when the amygdala takes over. A tired brain is a fearful brain. When you are exhausted, your internal dialogue naturally becomes more negative, more critical, and more pessimistic. You aren't actually a failure, you are just depleted. Leo realizes that he is redlining. He is trying to run a high-performance engine on an empty tank of gas. If he stays in this chair, he will enter a cycle of diminishing returns, where he spends 2 hours doing work that should take 20 minutes. He needs to enter the restoration phase. Restoration is not the same as slumping on the couch and scrolling through social media. In fact, doom scrolling is just more digital noise that prevents the brain from recovering. Instead, Leo uses a technique called the 20-20-20 reset. Every 20 minutes, he looks at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds. But for this deep fatigue, he needs something more powerful, non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. He lies flat on the floor, closes his eyes, and focuses entirely on the sensation of his body against the ground. He isn't trying to sleep, he is trying to declutch his brain from the world. He practices a body scan, mentally moving his attention from his toes to his head, noticing where he is holding tension and consciously letting it go. By removing all external stimuli, no lights, no sounds, no tasks, he allows his nervous system to shift from sympathetic stress to parasympathetic rest and digest. After 15 minutes of deep silence, Leo stands up. The cotton in his brain has cleared. The headache is gone, and more importantly, the critical voice has lost its edge. He realizes that laziness is often just a body's cry for maintenance. By respecting his biological limits, he has protected his mental clarity. But as he prepares to finish his work for the night, his phone buzzes. It's a text message from a colleague, someone who is known for being hyper-competitive and critical. The message reads, "Heard you got the big project. Bold move. Hope you're ready for the pressure." Suddenly, the professor and the paranoid roommate have a new ally, a real person. Leo's internal dialogue is about to face its most difficult challenge yet, the social trigger. Leo stares at the screen of his phone, the text message from his colleague glowing like a small, digital threat. Bold move. Hope you're ready for the pressure. In an instant, the calm he had worked so hard to build evaporates. His heart, which had just slowed down during his restoration, begins to hammer against his ribs. This is the social trigger. It is the most powerful weapon against our internal peace because we are evolutionarily wired to care about our status within the tribe. To our ancient brain, a subtle insult from a peer isn't just a text, it's a sign that we might be cast out into the wilderness to fend for ourselves. The paranoid roommate and the professor are suddenly having a party in Leo's head. They've found a new leader, the social mirror. This is the part of our dialogue that tries to see ourselves through the eyes of others. He thinks you're arrogant, the voice whispers. He knows something you don't. He can see your weakness from a mile away. Leo is falling into the trap of mind reading, a cognitive distortion where we assume we know exactly what others are thinking, usually imagining the most negative version possible. Leo is about to type a defensive, angry reply. His thumb hovers over the send button. But he stops. He remembers a crucial rule of mental mastery: you cannot control the broadcast, but you can control the reception. He decides to use a technique called the projection filter. He asks himself a transformative question. Is this message about my ability, or is it about his insecurity? When someone sends a passive-aggressive comment, they are often projecting their own fears or jealousy onto you. By telling Leo he hopes he is ready for the pressure, the colleague is actually revealing his own fear of pressure. He is trying to offload his anxiety onto Leo to make himself feel more powerful. Once Leo realizes this, the social mirror in his head shatters. The comment is no longer a reflection of Leo's worth, it's a map of the colleague's internal struggle. Leo puts the phone face down. He decides not to reply at all. This is an act of emotional autonomy. By refusing to engage in the drama, he is telling his brain that the colleague's opinion is not a tiger he needs to fight. He is choosing which voices he allows into his sanctuary and which ones he leaves at the door. He realizes that seeking external validation, the need for everyone to like and approve of him, is a trap that leads back to the shallow. Leo feels a sense of quiet triumph. He has successfully defended his mind against an external attack. He returns to his design, and for the first time, he feels truly in charge. But as he nears the final stages of the project, he encounters a new, unexpected obstacle. It's not a voice of fear or criticism. It's a voice of false comfort. The roommate has stopped shouting and has started suggesting that he's done enough. It's the voice of compromise. Leo is standing on the 5-yard line. The project is 90% complete, and for the first time all day, the studio feels peaceful. But this peace is a trap. The paranoid roommate has stopped shouting about failure and has stopped whispering about the deadline. Instead, it has put on a soft, warm sweater and changed its tone to one of false comfort. "Leo, look at what you've done," it says soothingly. "It's incredible. It's better than 99% of what's out there. You're exhausted. Why spend another hour obsessing over the details? Just hit send. It's good enough. This is the voice of complacency. It is the final defense mechanism of a brain that wants to return to homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's natural tendency to maintain a stable, constant internal environment. High-level creative work is a state of unbalance. It requires massive amounts of energy, focus, and neurochemicals. Your brain, which is designed for survival and energy conservation, hates being out of balance for too long. By telling Leo that the work is good enough, his brain is trying to trick him into stopping so it can go back to its low-energy, resting state. This is where most people stop. This is the difference between a skilled worker and a master. Leo looks at his design. The voice is right, it is good. He could send it now, and the client would likely be happy. But he knows that the final 10% of effort often creates 90% of the value. If he stops now, he is allowing the roommate to win through seduction rather than fear. To fight this, Leo introduces a new character into his internal dialogue, the advocate. Unlike the professor, who is critical and harsh, the advocate is a voice of high standards. The advocate doesn't ask, "Is this a failure?" It asks, "Is this your best?" Leo looks at the subtle shadows in his design and the spacing of the typography. He decides to use the 10% Polish rule. He commits to spending exactly 60 more minutes looking for the invisible details that others might miss. By doing this, Leo is training his brain to move past the threshold of excellence. He is teaching his nervous system that good enough is not the signal to stop. He is moving from a mindset of finishing a task to a mindset of crafting a legacy. The voice of false comfort starts to fade because Leo is no longer listening to his fatigue. He is listening to his potential. Leo works through the final hour. The false comfort roommate has left the room. He is in a state of quiet, intense focus. He refines the colors, sharpens the edges, and perfects the layout. He feels a different kind of energy now, not the frantic energy of fear, but the deep satisfaction of craftsmanship. He is finally ready. He hovers his mouse over the send button. But just as he is about to click, a cold, heavy thought hits him. It's not about the work, and it's not about the client. It's a thought about what happens after he sends it. The roommate is back, and it has one final, terrifying question. What if you're a one-hit wonder? Leo is about to face the fear of success. The finger stays on the mouse. The cursor is hovering over the send button, but Leo hasn't clicked it. A new, heavy silence fills the studio. It isn't the loud, aggressive fear of failure he felt this morning. This is something quieter, more seductive, and much more confusing. The paranoid roommate has returned, but it's no longer pointing at his mistakes. It's pointing at his success. If you send this, and they love it, your life changes, the voice whispers. They will expect this level of brilliance every single time. You've just set a precedent you can't possibly maintain. Are you ready to lose your anonymity? Are you ready for the weight of being the best? This is the fear of success, often called the upper limit problem. Psychologists believe that we all have an internal thermostat for how much success, love, or wealth we allow ourselves to enjoy. When we go above that setting, when we perform better than we ever have before, our brain treats the positive change as a threat to our identity. It feels unsafe to be that successful because it's unfamiliar. To get back to our safe level of mediocrity, we start to feel anxious or even engage in self-sabotage. For Leo, the roommate is trying to protect him from the pressure of future expectations by making him afraid to finish this project now. Leo realizes he is at a crossroads. If he listens to this voice, he will stay in his golden cage, a place where he is comfortable but never truly grows. He understands that this anxiety is just another defense mechanism. His brain is trying to save energy by avoiding the high-stakes world of elite performance. To break through this upper limit, Leo uses a technique called identity shifting. Instead of seeing this project as a lucky break, or a one-time miracle, Leo begins to tell himself a new story. He whispers, "I am the kind of person who produces high-quality work. This isn't a fluke, it is the result of my discipline." By shifting his identity from someone who got lucky to someone who is disciplined, he lowers the pressure. He isn't trying to be a genius, he is simply being himself. He realizes that success isn't a destination he has to stay at, it's just a byproduct of the way he works. Leo takes a final, steady breath. He realizes that the future pressure is just another ghost. He doesn't need to be perfect tomorrow, he only needs to be finished today. With a decisive click, he hits send. The email vanishes. The project is gone. Suddenly, the room feels empty. The war is over, but the adrenaline is still humming in his veins. Now comes the most difficult part of all, the void. For the next few hours, or perhaps days, there will be no feedback. There will only be silence. Leo is about to enter the waiting period, where the inner critic makes its final, desperate stand. The click of the mouse sounds like a gunshot in the quiet studio. The email is gone, the files are uploaded, and the work is officially out of Leo's hands. But as he sits back, he realizes that the deep has left a vacuum behind. The intense focus that fueled him all day has evaporated, leaving him in a state of high alert suspense. This is the waiting period, and for the internal critic, this is the most fertile ground of all. Without the work to focus on, Leo's brain begins to struggle with uncertainty and tolerance. The human brain is a prediction machine, it hates not knowing. When we are faced with ambiguity, like the silence of a client who hasn't replied yet, the brain often tries to fill the gap with the worst possible information. In the absence of feedback, the paranoid roommate creates its own. "They haven't replied because they're horrified," the voice whispers. "They're currently having a meeting about how to fire you. You probably attached the wrong file. You definitely missed a typo on page 3. Leo feels an excruciating urge to check his sent folder. He wants to open the files one more time, just to make sure. This is a classic symptom of post-completion anxiety. Even though he can't change anything now, his brain is trying to regain control over a situation that is no longer in his power. He is looking for reassurance, but he is looking for it in the wrong place. Leo realizes that if he spends the next 12 hours refreshing his inbox, he will destroy all the mental progress he made today. He needs to perform a cognitive shutdown. He uses a technique called the mental firewall. He tells himself, "The work is done. My responsibility for the outcome ended the moment I hit send. Any thought about the project now is a waste of biological energy." To make this real, he engages in physical transference. He writes the word "finished" in big, bold letters on a sticky note and places it over his computer screen. Then, he leaves the room. He is physically and mentally segregating his identity from his output. He understands that his inner critic thrives on the what-ifs of the future. By refusing to engage with the silence, he is starving the critic of the attention it needs to survive. He realizes that the quality of his work is a reflection of his rigor, but the client's reaction is a reflection of their needs, which he cannot control. Leo goes for a long walk. He focuses on the rhythm of his feet on the pavement and the cool air in his lungs. He is practicing process-oriented thinking. He reminds himself that the success of the day wasn't the final product. It was the fact that he mastered his internal dialogue to create it. He has already won the battle that matters most. The night passes. He sleeps deeply, having exhausted his paranoid roommate. But the next morning, as he pours his coffee, his phone finally chimes. The notification is from the client. His heart skips a beat. The silence is over. The inner critic stands up, ready for one final, desperate fight. The email contains feedback, but it isn't a simple "I love it." It's a list of revisions. Leo is about to face the ultimate test of his new mindset. Can he handle constructive criticism without letting his professor turn it into a personal attack? Leo stares at the list of revisions. In the past, this would have been the moment of total collapse. The professor would have used these notes as evidence of Leo's incompetence. They found the flaws. The voice would have screamed. They know you're not a professional. But as Leo reads the comments, he notices something different. He isn't feeling a sting, he's feeling curiosity. He has achieved the final and most important stage of mental mastery, feedback decoupling. Leo has learned to separate his self-worth from his output. The client isn't criticizing Leo the person, they are refining Leo's work. He realizes that the revisions aren't an attack, they are an opportunity to make the project even better. This is the collaborative mindset. He no longer sees his internal dialogue as a battlefield where he must fight for his ego. Instead, he sees it as a boardroom where different parts of his mind work together toward a common goal. He makes the changes with a sense of ease. He doesn't argue with the client in his head, and he doesn't apologize for his mistakes. He simply executes with precision. When he sends the final version, he doesn't feel the void, or the waiting period, anxiety. He feels a sense of integrated power. He has mastered the art of self-correction, without self-criticism. As the weeks pass, Leo notices that his entire life has changed. He is more productive, yes, but he is also more at peace. He has moved from a state of high conflict thinking to a state of cognitive harmony. He still hears the paranoid roommate and the professor from time to time. After all, those biological circuits never truly disappear, but they no longer hold the microphone. They are just background noise, like the sound of traffic outside a window. Leo has turned his internal dialogue from a cage into a compass. He knows how to listen to the helpful caution of his amygdala without letting it trigger a hijack. He knows how to use the high standards of his internalized mentors without letting them become toxic. He has become the conductor of his own mental orchestra. The story of Leo is the story of the modern human condition. We are all born with a brain that is wired for a world that no longer exists. We are all haunted by voices that aren't our own. But as Leo discovered, you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that hears them. Mastery isn't about silencing the inner critic, it's about outgrowing it. It's about building a life that is so authentic and so focused that the critic simply has nothing left to say. Leo walks out of his studio, not as a man who survived a project, but as a man who has reclaimed his mind. He looks at the world with clear eyes, ready for the next challenge, knowing that whatever happens out there, he is finally at home. In here. The war is over. The dialogue is mastered. The masterpiece is not on the screen, it is the man walking down the street.